Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths movie video. DC just announced that they're doing a movie based on Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is ironic because haven't we been here before? Didn't we just do Crisis on Infinite Earths in the DC TV verse? They were also planning on doing Crisis on Infinite Earths in the movies with the live-action Henry Cavill-based Zack Snyder universe of DC characters. I'll explain what those alternate plans are and what this new Crisis on Infinite Earths movie is going to be, what it's meant to do. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos.
You're late, you dickheads.
I know it sounds confusing because they used to have all these different plans and it sounds like they weren't going to do Crisis on Infinite Earths in the movies because they're rebooting into the James Gunn DCU universe of movies. But this is meant to be the end of the Tomorrowverse of the DC animated movies with the R-rated DC movies that they've been doing the past couple of years. This week, as I'm posting this video, they're getting ready to release Justice League Warworld. They have like Jensen Ackles' Batman, the Darren Criss version of Superman that started in Superman Man of Tomorrow, like this line of continuity that they're calling the Tomorrowverse of animated movies. And it sounds like they're going to reboot all the DC animated movies into the James Gunn DCU, where everything becomes canon together. I'll explain that in a second because their plan going forward is for everything to be canon together, kind of the same way that the Marvel animated and TV shows on Disney Plus are canon to all the MCU movies now, whereas before that wasn't the case. Before the big James Gunn reboot, you had all these different lines of continuity, like the animated movies were their own thing. You had a bunch of standalone animated movies that weren't canon to the other animated movies. Some of the live-action stuff was taking place in different continuities, like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker was in a different universe from the Matt Reeves Batman, was in a different universe from the Zack Snyder Snyderverse of Justice League movies.
So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation. That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity.
James Gunn is slowly sort of uniting all that with a very few exceptions. Like we still have the Matt Reeves Batman universe, which is going to continue to do its own thing, probably through a trilogy until they eventually completely just go to the one version of Batman that will eventually meet when they do Batman Brave and the Bold. And they probably will not do another sequel to the Joaquin Phoenix Joker 2 movie, so that'll be the end of that line of continuity as well too, kind of sewing everything up in the same continuity. If you weren't at Comic-Con this weekend, they actually did a special premiere for Justice League Warworld. They'll release that in the next couple of days on home video, so you'll be able to watch it in a couple of days no matter what. That's loosely based on the classic Gladiator Superman vs. Mongol battle in the Superman Exile storyline back in the 80s, where he briefly left Earth, winds up on Warworld, has to challenge Mongol in gladiator combat. Like he wears the gladiator costume. Everybody remembers the gladiator costume. That basically involves Mongol beating the crap out of him, Planet Hulk style, and him having to actually learn how to fight like a gladiator in a knockdown, drag-out fight, where his power levels are similar to someone else that he's fighting, because before this, he never really actually had to fight. Remember, this is happening long before the big Death of Superman arc with Doomsday, so he hasn't fought Doomsday yet. Zack Snyder kind of got into this phenomenon during the Man of Steel movie where Superman is so powerful, like he's basically a god on Earth, he's never actually had to learn how to fight. Like he just learns to control his power so he doesn't accidentally kill a whole bunch of people, but he never actually learns to really fight like a military person will learn how to fight, or an actual fighter. So when Zod and the Kryptonians show up, they wind up kicking his ass pretty quickly because they're about the same power level, until he slowly learns to fight a little bit better through the course of that movie. In the more recent comics, like literally just a couple years ago, they did a new Superman Worlds of War alternate future series as part of this event called Future State, where Superman had to fight on Warworld and gladiator combat in a similar way without his powers, but it was like a distant post-apocalyptic future, and in that timeline things got all wonky. He winds up being captured and taken to Warworld, and Mongol's son, who's since taken over, the original Mongol died a long time ago in the comics, kills Superman almost every day, then resurrects him, and just keeps going on until eventually Superman is able to lead an insurrection and take over Warworld. So if you wonder where all the Superman gladiator costumes come from and you haven't been reading the comics, that's where they came from. There are a couple jokes about those costumes in the more recent comics with like Lois Lane making him keep it so they can get super freaky with it and do a little bit of role-playing. Make all the jokes you want about that. There've been a couple times in the comics where the Justice League has been forced to fight in gladiator combat, like they did a Justice League animated series version of the War World story. Justice League was forced to fight in gladiator combat during the Dark Knight's Metal series a little while ago. So the idea is that next year, Crisis on Infinite Earths is based on the Tomorrowverse line of continuity, with them loosely adapting the plot of comic book Crisis on Infinite Earths, but it will carry forward the ending of Justice League War World and those main characters. It'll probably be one of the final DC animated movies that are part of that Tomorrowverse continuity before James Gunn's reboot of DC movies takes effect with Creature Commandos. That's like the first canon DC animated series that he's doing. Meaning that with the start of that, all the animated actors will also play their characters in live action. Like they've already confirmed that some of the Creature Commando animated characters will show up in the live action projects after that. And the same will be vice versa. So like the new version of Superman, the new version of Batman that's inside this Justice League universe, the DCU, as James Gunn is calling it, they'll also show up in the animated projects eventually too. But they've only announced one animated project that's canon so far, and that's Creature Commandos. Animated movies take a couple years to complete, so they already know what the next couple of animated projects are. James Gunn just hasn't announced what they are yet. But it's kind of the same thing that Marvel has been doing since they started doing the Disney Plus series, where you have the animated characters from the What If series also playing their characters in live action, like Captain Carter. Jeffrey Wright is going to come back as the Watcher in live action projects. Most of the live action actors played the animated versions of their characters, not every single one, but most of them. If you remember a couple years ago, they kind of did the same thing in the DC animated movies with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which was another really cool rated R animated movie. It was actually really, really good. It served as the final movie in the DC animated movie universe timeline when they rebooted into the Tomorrowverse with Superman Man of Tomorrow and the Darren Criss version of Superman. So now they're kind of doing the exact same thing with the Tomorrowverse timeline, ending it with Crisis on Infinite Earths, but because they are going full Crisis, it's a big multiverse movie, they can bring back all the characters from all these previous animated movie universes and the animated TV shows and bring them into the same continuity. So like at the end of Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, the Flash rebooted the timeline again. People are like, oh, what happened to all those characters? They can actually explain that during the Crisis on Infinite Earths movie. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll also get a bunch of live-action cameos too, Spider-Verse style. Like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse have been mixing live-action and animated elements. Hopefully they try to do the same thing with the Crisis on Infinite Earths movie. I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but we'll see. So I'm assuming that they're using this Crisis on Infinite Earths to reboot into the James Gunn DCU, which will start with Creature Commandos. Now, there is an animated Watchmen movie that they just announced that's meant to be a totally separate thing. It's not canon to the DC animated movies or anything like that, even though technically they did canonize Watchmen to the DC universe a couple years ago. You could just hear Alan Moore screaming about that. If you don't know Alan Moore in real life, he hated the idea of tying Watchmen to the larger DC universe. Think of the new animated Watchmen movie, which will also probably be rated R, as a more faithful adaptation of the original Watchmen comic book, which is kind of funny because Zack Snyder's Watchmen actually had animated elements to it during the Tales of the Black Freighter. That was meant to be a fictional in-universe comic book story, meant to be a metaphor for the action in present day with Dr. Manhattan. It'd be like someone in a Superman movie reading a Batman comic book inside the Superman movie, and the plot of that comic book foreshadows everything that happens in the reality of the Superman movie in present day. Justice League War World is rated R, so I'm assuming Crisis on Infinite Earths will also be rated R. Justice League Dark Apocalypse War was also rated R. Really loving that DC is doing all these R-rated animated movies, or if you live in another country, it's basically rated mature, like whatever the highest rating is. Usually the reason why they give them that hardcore rating is just because of violence. I've already done a couple of videos about the live-action version of the Crisis on Infinite Earths movie that they had planned on doing before James Gunn's big reboot became a thing. That was why they had the Black Adam Superman post-credit scene with the Henry Cavill Superman to tease him coming back, why Henry Cavill released that special video about them doing a bunch of stuff like, you will be rewarded for waiting for so long for me to do my next movie. The idea is that they were going to use the Flash movie in a big post-credit scene that they wind up deleting, where Superman comes back, Wonder Woman comes back, Ben Affleck's Batman gets lost to the multiverse and teases this coming crisis, so to speak. They were originally going to end the Flash movie with him changing the can of tomatoes to get his father out of prison, so he makes a minor change. Michael Keaton and Supergirl wind up on the main Earth again with the rest of the regular Justice League that you know, like Henry Cavill's Superman. Ben Affleck's Batman gets lost in the multiverse with a change in the timeline that Barry creates, and he warns him in a dream about a coming crisis. That was meant to be like a 10-year plan, so like they weren't going to do the next movie as Crisis on Infinite Earths. They were going to do a Justice League 2 with the Snyderverse cast of actors, but Michael Keaton Batman replacing Ben Affleck's Batman temporarily. Then eventually, once they do build up to that live-action Crisis on Infinite Earths, they bring everybody back and a whole bunch of better-looking versions of cameos like you saw in the Flash movie, like the Chrono Bowl cameo scenes. Imagine much, much better versions of that. This time, probably actually having Grant Gustin Flash cameos from the live-action DC TV actors like they should have had during the Flash movie. Probably would have been a much better movie if they would have had Grant Gustin and even like Christian Bale's Batman. I've already done a much longer video on all the Flash deleted scenes, all the Superman Henry Cavill stuff they took out, all the other deleted scenes and deleted cameo scenes, so I'll post a link in the description below. But if we hear any more, we get more trailers for this Crisis on Infinite Earths movie, then I'll do more videos for it. There were a couple other really big things that released at Comic-Con. I'll try to do videos for all the trailers, all the big announcements, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss anything. Click here for that Invincible Season 2 trailer video. It looks like it's going to be amazing. And click here for all my other Comic-Con trailer videos and episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.